Today we're celebrating our friend Rickey Williams' life, and there's no way to start this than with worshiping the God that he served, that he loved, and he lived his life as an act of worship. And so you're welcome to stand with us, you're welcome to sit, but we would love if you would worship with us.
Sweet to the soul, and I'm swept away. I am good, you say I'm good. I am worthy, wanted, loved by. This is living, breathing that I am chosen, wanted, loved by. I'm undone with love for you. There is a person, light running through his head, speaking with kindness and brimming with gentleness, and he heals to the bone, he speaks straight to the soul, and I'm swept away. I am good, you say I'm good. I am worthy, wanted, loved by. This is living, breathing proof that I am chosen, wanted, loved by. I'm undone with love for you, and within all the joy, and throughout all the waiting, I'm undone with love for you. And I could never forget the spirit that changed me. I'm undone with love for you. I'm undone with love for you. Are the Father, love running through your veins, warm and devoted, tenderness filled with strength, and he heals to the bone. He speaks life to my soul, and I'm swept away. And I'm swept away. Oh, I am good, you say I'm good. I am worthy, wanted, loved by. This is living, breathing the glimmer that breaks the constant night. And you are the brilliance, the dream, the evidence of things unseen. And even the darkest days are temporary. You are the everlasting light. And all of the time and space could not contain you. You are the everlasting light. Sing the end and the beginning. The end and the beginning, the new reality. Outside my understanding, it's still within my reach. As far as I can see you, you're closest still to me. You are the everlasting light. Oh, the end and the beginning, the new reality. Outside my understanding, it's still within my reach. As far as I can see you, you're closest still to me. You are the everlasting light. And even the darkest days are temporary. You are the everlasting light. And all of the time and space could not contain you. You are the everlasting light. Even the darkest days, oh, even the darkest days are temporary. You are the everlasting light. And all of the time and space could not contain you. You are the everlasting light. You are the everlasting light.
I've learned that most distorted power dynamics can be defined this way. The people with the problem don't have often the power alone to create a solution. And the people with the power often don't have the problem, so they don't take the time to create the solution. But what we can do is acknowledge this as a human problem, take ownership of it, and do what we can to listen and learn, and actually use whatever power we have, whether great or small, to begin to bring a change. When we stand for the truth, it may go unnoticed by others, but it will never go unnoticed by us. The same thing is true as if we turn our back on the truth. And it never goes unnoticed by God. Our lives are defined by these moments of truth. You make a decision now, not knowing the future, having complete uncertainty about what might happen, what new opportunities may come, and you say, I'm here for life. I'm committing my life right now to be here and build this thing no matter where it takes us. No matter what it means, no matter what adversity I experience, no matter what my vocation is. I've been a volunteer here for 22 years. I've been on paid staff for 2 months. It's going to take volunteers to build this thing. That's the message of the scriptures. That's the early church. Volunteers are the movement of the church. When a group of people turn to God together, God shows up and does amazing things. And part of turning to God is not just praying together. It's not just thinking good thoughts together. It's putting those prayers and thoughts to action. And that's what we stand for. That's what we're called to every single week here. We're not about just feeling some way. We are about doing it. And that's what it takes for us to build what we're building. We got to be people of action who are going to do the work. I remember one time Pastor Erwin pulled us all together. And he said, I don't know what the future holds, but I know we're going to be here together. Basically, love makes God visible. So anytime you've experienced love from being in this community, you've seen God. And that's what we're trying to show the world. That's the only way we can show the world that God is real. It's through love.
And so we take this revolution and we fight this battle today so that the children of our future will not have to fight it tomorrow. So we march. And we march as one, not condemning each other's ideas or views, but learning from each other and empathizing with each other. Because condemnation breeds oppression, but empathy breeds understanding. Understanding that will lead us to the solutions that we all long for, no matter our beliefs. So we march.
What kind of impact can we make if we live for truth in the city? We live in a life that's committed to the truth, full and free. People will come to you wanting to know where that freedom comes from.
We march for a future. We march for a future because it will not just come, but it has to be chosen, it has to be created, and it must be fought for. This is why we march.
We just want to welcome you here to celebrate the life of Rickey Williams, and we chose our dearest friends, people in our community, people who are close to Rickey and Laura and our family, and we're so honored for you to join us as we celebrate, as we mourn together the life of Rickey. And you know, we've been loved so well. We've seen some of the most traumatic things, horrible feelings, painful experiences, but also some of the most beautiful, kind, and warm glimpses of love just from our community. Pastor Erwin, Pastor Kim, you have seen us in our worst and our best moments. We want to thank you for loving us so well. And we get to just be here in this moment and think about the things that Rickey meant to us, but also things that we learned that we can get through anything together, because that's what he showed us. And just before I bring Pastor Erwin up here to share with you, I just want you to know, bro, that you know, it was college when Rickey and I would talk about you, and I would, you know, we caught the bug of not letting the world stay the same and wanting to mess with it, wanting to see if we could make a difference. And it's just been, we always admired you from afar, and then we actually got close to you, then we got really close to you. And it's one thing to admire someone, it's another thing to, like, we actually really, really love you. And both of us just thought, when if he's going to lay his life down, we're going to lay our lives down with him. And it's just been it's been just a realization for me just how beautiful friendship is, and that you're better. We're better together, and just so honored for you to come and share with us a few words. Thank you.
I'm not sure why I'm the only one socially distanced from everyone else, but I'll just accept that. I was telling David behind the curtain that I'm really not here just as your pastor. I'm here as your friend and your brother and your family. And if you're like me, you have a lot of different emotions that are rushing through you at the same time. I'm sad. And not because I have any doubt of eternity, because I just don't. Not because I'm feeling like Rickey's sad, because I think Rickey is doing better than us. I'm just sad because we lost someone really special, really beautiful, really kind, really funny. And you could tell he really wanted to be John Belushi. and Jesus wrapped up in one. I'm also kind of mad. I don't know if you're allowed to be mad, but I feel mad. And I guess I feel mad because I feel like there's so much more that Rickey could do in the world that would make the world better. I'm mad because of how much he loved Laura and Jake, and how valuable he is to you. I'm mad that you lost someone so beautiful in your life and so special to you. I don't know if pastors are supposed to say that. I'm just going to tell you what I really feel. It seems like it's been 30 years since I crashed into the Williams and Arcoses, and I met them. They're coming out in college or coming out of college, and I remember David talking about Rickey and telling me about his friend, who was one of the most gifted, talented, extraordinary people he'd ever known. And David was almost like a John the Baptist for Rickey Williams, because whenever David was around, he would tell you about Rickey and prepare you for someone awesome. And ironically, David almost never talked about himself. He just talked about his sister Laura and her husband Rickey. And that was before you were born, Jake. It's not that we weren't talking about you. You did not exist yet. And just up the street here in Palm Park, we would play basketball together. And I still remember Rickey coming out and playing ball with us and being a really good athlete. And me stopping in the middle of a basketball game and saying, "Hey, why don't you come and be our youth pastor?" And he said, "I've been waiting for you to ask me. But no, because he goes, I'm not ready. I have the issues I got to deal with in my own character that I want to say yes, but I'm not going to say yes because I don't want to say yes when I don't feel in my heart I'm ready for that role." I can tell you on one finger how many people have ever said to me, "I want this job, but no, because I'm not ready." And that was your dad. It was your husband. And ironically, he was ready than most of the people who said yes. And that's the interesting thing about a human being when they're trying to be honest with who they are and grappling with their struggles and trying to become like Jesus in the process. There's a particular passage I want to share with you because I think it does typify this moment in Rickey's life. Because I can just, it's almost like my mind just goes to different snapshots of moments together. We moved to our house in Whittier and a lot of basketball themes. Playing basketball in the backyard where I tore my Achilles and everybody just looked at me, because that's what a lot of the guys do. They just look at you while you're floundering on the ground in agonizing pain without the IQ to know to help. And Rickey just bent down and picked me up, and he picked me up like I was a Barbie. And in that moment, he was Ken. And I remember as he was carrying me to the house and I was so much pain, I told him, I said, I'm not even sure how I should feel. This is one of the most romantic moments I've ever experienced. But I have to tell you, I noticed how this guy, he's just so gentle. And he would never try to impose himself on a person But he picked me up like I was a rag doll, and it was so easy for him. And I realized there's just so much strength inside of this person that he hides, and both in humility and in humor. And I'll never forget the times where we've dreamed about changing the world and making the world a better place. And he is a great communicator. And I also remember when he was probably one of the funniest guys I've ever known. And he pretty much had a 45-minute stand-up comedy routine that was brilliant. And all of it was about making fun of himself. I mean, he could talk about running triathlons, and you would almost be dying, gasping for air. But I remember one day he said to me, he said, I don't want to be that guy anymore. He said, I don't want to be the guy who makes people laugh by speaking badly or making fun of himself. I want to be a man that's respected by the life I live and the choices I make. And I thought that was a really powerful moment. And I think that's a part of, I think the legacy we're going to remember. I can tell you, Laura, that few men that I've ever known have loved their wives as much as he loves you. So proud and honored. I think in a lot of ways, whenever Rickey struggled with his self-esteem, he would just look at you and go, I'm okay. And I know a lot of his self-image and the strength of it came because you said yes to be his wife. And watching you grow up, Jake, your dad's so proud of you. See, I'm not going to use past tense because your dad is still really proud of you. And I always thought it was a beautiful thing because most of the time you see a dad pulling their son up, but I watched you pull your dad up too. And I have to tell you, as his son, you made your dad a better man. You made him want to be better, and that's true for both of you. And I just, as I look around and I just see Brent and Molly, and you guys are here, and I know that we stole Rickey from you guys, but he belonged in California. He belonged in the future, and we're so grateful that you guys let us have him for this season of his life. And David, I know that you've lost your best friend, and I recognize that, but that's who Rickey is, and I always remember that grieving is proof that love is more powerful than death, because when you're grieving, I think grief is the human experience of our love passing through time into eternity and connecting to the person that we love. But I want you to know that even though Rickey has passed from life into eternity, because he didn't pass from life to death, he was already alive, and now he has passed from life into eternity. But what he's done is in this room, and it's still alive. In John chapter 12, verses 22 on down, Jesus said this, "Very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." And this is the passage that really came to mind when I thought about Rickey. Because even as I was listening to that piece, Jake, when you were speaking and heard the piece right before with your dad speaking, I could just see the seed that was implanted in you by your father is already coming to life. And every one of us in this room who have known Rickey have had seeds planted into us through him. And those seeds are still coming to life. And one of the powerful things, and not everyone can say this, we try to say it about everyone, but we really cannot say it about everyone. Some people invest their lives so well in others. It doesn't mean they're perfect. It doesn't mean they didn't make mistakes. It doesn't mean they didn't have struggles. But you can see the driving theme of their life was to give their life away for others. And they're like a Johnny Appleseed of life. They just keep pouring seeds and seeds and seeds in other people's lives. And that's why death has no power over them. And I know that when Jesus was saying this, he was talking about himself, of course, that he had to die for the fullness of his gift to us to come into reality. But I think it's also true when we live our lives well, when we live our lives best. When we live for ourselves, we're just that solitary seed that never planted in any soil at all. And there's a tragedy of that seed. But that's why today I know there's grief and I know there's sorrow and I'm sure there's some anger. But I want you to know that what we have here is really a reason to celebrate. Because Rickey's life was an investment in others. And there's so many. This room would be too small to hold everyone whose life was impacted by Rickey. This room would be too small for everyone who would say, my life is different, my life is better because of the investment Rickey made in my life. And that to me is what we need to focus on and celebrate. That even here in this moment, yes, Rickey leaving us at 48 was unexpected and way too soon. And there's a lot of emotions that fill a moment like this. But what you should not question is the value and importance and significance of Rickey's life. And every one of you is a declaration of that value. Jesus he goes on to say this, and it's a little bit harsh, but I'm going to read it anyways. He says, anyone who loves their life will lose it, and anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servant also will be. My Father will honor the one who serves me. And I think this is powerful because Jesus doesn't say, my Father will honor the one who does it perfectly. He doesn't say that my Father will honor the one who gets it all right all the time. He says, look, my Father's going to honor the one who serves me. And I think it's so powerful that Jesus tells us, look, whoever serves me must follow me, which, by the way, Rickey did throughout his entire life. And he says, and where I am, my servant also will be. So we know where Rickey is right now. Because living his life with every day that we could count of those 48 years, moving in the direction of Jesus, serving others in Jesus' name. Never any ambiguity in Rickey's life of who he had entrusted his life to. So we know where he is now because he's with Jesus right now. Because, by the way, he was with Jesus before he died. And he's with Jesus now as he lives in eternity. And I hope that for all of us, this moment, these moments are moments where the best way we can honor the person we love and the person we've lost is to assess our own lives. And to know that all of our lives have an expiration date. That our time here on this earth is always too short. It doesn't matter how long you live, it's just always too short. So the tragedy is not that we die. The tragedy is when we've never lived. So there is no tragedy here. There is no tragedy here because Rickey lived. And we celebrate that life because that life was found in the Jesus that he loved. So I just want to leave you with that thought. The best way to honor Rickey is to live. To live your life the way he longed to live his life, serving others by giving honor to Jesus, who gave his life for him. I'd like to pray, if I could. And then David's going to come back up, and the family's going to share together. Father, I want to thank you for the gift of knowing Rickey. And Father, we together pray as a family, as a community, especially for Laura and for Jake. God, we pray as a family for them that you would strengthen them and bring them comfort and give them a deep sense of peace. I pray, Father, they would have an unexplainable confidence that Rickey is alive and well, that he is with you. And Father, we don't understand the timing of things. It's impossible for us to make sense of the minute and the hour and the day that we are born and the moment we die. But we are here with full confidence that you are the God of eternity. And so we want to celebrate Rickey's life. And we will not allow this conversation to act as if the last sentence of his story has been written. His life has just gone from short story to epic novel. But Father, from this side of eternity, there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And so we ask you, Jesus, would you come and be for each one a comforter, the Prince of Peace. Be the one who heals wounds. And I pray, Father, that today would be an inspiration to live a life that honors Rickey's life and the Jesus whom he served. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. David.
Rickey, I was trying to think of how to honor you, and this story came out. There was once a giant chasm. I stood on one side, and on the other was a great city. There were communities and groups of people of every race struggling and straining together with deep joy to serve the world. Project after project that brought freedom to so many. I saw families restored. Men that I knew were trapped in addiction and isolation were dancing in complete freedom. Women who felt unloved were worshiping the God who loves so well. And kids, so many kids were playing and running around, laughter and tears poured out. I saw a sign in the middle of this city that lit up with brilliant letters that read, "Future." Immediately I realized it was everything I dreamt of, all that I had hoped for, and more than that. What I could do with my single life if I chose to live courageously. But then there was the chasm. It was deep and so wide there was no way to jump or climb around it. I prayed, Lord, how can I reach this place? How can I reach my life? So desperately, I need to get there, to be there, to live there. I heard nothing. It was only a dream, I thought, and I feared I would continue to find it so far from my reach. But then I looked down, and at my feet, I saw a brick with a statement, then another, and another, tens, hundreds, thousands of bricks forming a bridge to the other side right in front of me. I couldn't believe this was possible. I began to walk even as the bridge was being constructed. As I was crossing the bridge, I stopped and knelt down and read a statement. Bro, whatever you choose to teach will be life-changing. I read another. Bro, you were so authentic when you shared today. And another, we are all with you. Go. Texts, emails, and spoken words from you, Rickey. Then I just found a brick with an exclamation point, and I just laughed. I realized you shouted hope to me so often. Each brick was a word from you. You had faith in me when the world seemed silent. You spoke when my own voice condemned me. The first bricks were laid back in college, early statements of hope. Somehow we decided together we weren't going to let the world be what it was. We're going to mess with it. And you decided way back then that you would just have my back. I saw different color bricks with other names on it too, but your bricks made up the most of it. I began to run across this bridge, but then it stopped. Suddenly, the bridge was halfway there, and I didn't make it across. I thought, maybe I'm supposed to wait for my community to help me, or maybe time was needed. But before I even finished that thought, a blank brick appeared with my name on it. It was my turn to speak what was right, what was true for others. Rickey Williams, you were never supposed to get me there. You were the voice of God, there to help me know how to cross by seeing, by serving others. I have a journey ahead, but I'm going to use my voice more from now on. I started yesterday. Thank you, Rickey. I invite Brent up here to share.
So I sat down about 2 hours ago to write a speech, and I realized the scale of the mountain I had to climb. By the way, yes, I started writing my brother's eulogy 2 hours ago. He was an awful procrastinator. I'm an awful procrastinator. I feel like I'm paying tribute to him. The problem I have is not procrastination. I've had much harder deadlines for bigger projects than I generally have come through. The problem I have here is that everybody knows Rickey's a pretty amazing public speaker. He's an inspiring person to so many people, and while Rick and I have been told many times over the years that we have the same mannerisms and speech patterns and so forth, I am not the orator that Rickey is. So this feels like an impossible challenge right now. How can I give a powerful and inspiring speech that does justice to the man Rick was? Especially when one of his best qualities was giving powerful and inspiring speeches. As I kind of mentioned, I don't have to convince anybody what kind of man Rick was. If you spent 5 or 10 minutes talking to him, you knew it. If you had only one conversation with Rick your whole life, you'd probably remember it. Rick was always concerned with big questions in life, often unanswerable ones about himself or the person he was talking to or just the universe. Who are we? Where are we going? What is my destiny? What is your destiny? Why are we here? Talking to him for a few minutes, you might leave the conversation inspired, knowing what the meaning of life is, or you might come away with an existential crisis like I sometimes did. And of course, most people know about Rickey's sense of humor and his ability to tell stories. Some of you might even recognize me from these stories. Stories he liked to tell at my expense. Often to very large groups of people, maybe this size or bigger. So I would come to LA to visit Rick as often as I could, and I would meet a lot of the people here and other people, and they would recognize me and burst out laughing. But that was nice. But you know, Rick actually, one thing you might not know is he actually, or maybe you do, he could be sensitive. He got his feelings hurt pretty easily sometimes, which was kind of irritating if you're a little brother with a score to settle. Don't want to hurt his feelings. But, you know, he told stories about me. He joked with me. I was I don't want to say the butt of a joke from Rick, but sometimes. But he never hurt my feelings. He would sometimes hurt my arm when I was a kid, when he hit me on the arm or pushed me on the shoulder. That would hurt, but he never hurt my feelings. I've always felt so much love and encouragement from Rick, especially as we got older, that I don't think it would have been possible to be hurt by anything he ever said. And he always had the emotional intelligence to know where the line is with somebody, with me. Thinking back on why he got his feelings hurt so easily, I think it's because his heart was naked. As we grow older and suffer life's slings and arrows, we learn to protect ourselves. This is true of me. We enclose our hearts in a tough leather covering so we can't be hurt, but not Rick. His heart was open to everybody, even though that meant sometimes it got easily bruised. Rick had such a love for people who he knew all his life or only just met or didn't even know. I have to be honest, this is kind of the opposite of me. Like everybody else, I of course love family and people close to me, but I don't seek out, it's not easy for me to seek out people to love and connect with the way Rick did. I believe there was something categorically different about the way Rick saw people, the way he connected with them. It was like he was on a different plane from everybody else. You just could tell if you knew him. And again, another thing that was different between the two of us, he was a positive person. Rickey was always convinced that love would overcome and that good would prevail over evil in the world. And I'm an avowed skeptic and cynic, and I found that perplexing. But I also found it comforting and even inspiring, because unlike a lot of optimists, Rickey was not blind. He did not put on blinders to what happened in the world or look through rose-colored glasses. He did not bury his head in the sand. He was aware of the pain and suffering and injustice that exists, and at times he even experienced in his own life. But he made a purposeful choice to not despair, to not throw up his hands or shake his head and walk away. He was determined to do his part to alleviate suffering or right wrongs or heal pain that he found. So Rick and I like to argue a lot, all the way up to the end. Not just as little brothers, all the way up to the end we argued. But as we grew older, the arguments changed. We've all heard the stories about, you don't talk about politics and religion, you don't want to start fights or whatever, but we disagreed and argued about the biggest questions in life, the questions that Rick always liked to talk about and think about. I don't know how, but we never became bitter or acrimonious with each other. It was always loving. I don't know how you can discuss the topics we discussed and not get personal, but we just didn't. And again, this is mainly Rickey, because I never felt rejected by Rick for my beliefs. I was never a project to complete or a notch in his column that he needed to mark. Our beliefs about life's big questions diverged, and we grew over time in our beliefs. Some things we actually shared the same beliefs, but those beliefs tracked each other and changed a lot over time. Specifically, social, political issues, justice, equality, those kinds of things. I think our views sort of tracked each other on those issues. And I'm sure we just saw the part of the video where Rick explains his views on racial inequality and how those views changed over time and why they've changed over time, the things that impacted him. And Rick had shared these thoughts with me before. We talked a lot, and he had talked about those things with me. And one of the things he asked was, or he didn't ask it, he really just sort of wondered, is why my beliefs had tracked with his, even though I didn't have the same kind of front row seat that he had in his job to these injustices and issues that changed his views on things. So at the time that he wondered this, or he brought this up, I just decided to respond as a younger brother might and just say it was probably because I was smarter than him. But after he died, I've thought about this question that he asked, and I think ironically it was because of Rick. I don't even think I realized it. His dedication over his entire life and career to helping other people, his compassion and love for other people who didn't look like him or speak like him or think like him. His willingness to learn, to challenge his beliefs with an open heart. I believe I saw these qualities in him, and without even realizing it, they changed my values as well. Rick and I stayed close through the years. Even though I lived half a continent away, I knew Rick better than all but a couple people. And you might wonder how two people so different in a lot of ways could stay so close with each other. Brothers aren't always close, especially as you get later in life. You have kids and responsibilities, and we live 1,300 miles apart. Again, I attribute this to Rick's loving heart. When you're somebody like me, to have somebody like Rick as a big brother is such a blessing. His certainty that good would overcome was the anchor to secure me in a turbulent world. His love shining on me gave me hope in my darkest hours. I was never rejected by Rick because of my beliefs, but only felt the same fierce love from him that we received from our mother when she lived. To greatly understate the situation for me right now, life without Rick feels daunting, but it does not feel hopeless. He would and did believe in me, always. I desperately wish we could have had more time together. We talked often about maybe someday living in the same city, seeing each other more. But I've seen the impact he had on so many people, and I've had the sacred privilege to be a large part of such a precious and beautiful life. So I am determined to honor his belief in me by living a life and being a man that will make him proud.
I'm going to completely read mine. These last 8 days, the outpouring of love has been so overwhelming. Just reading your words and hearing the stories and mostly seeing the consistent theme of impact from Rick's teen years until now has been more healing than you could know, so thank you. To Rickey's students from SEA, who I think are here, you honor us with your presence. Thank you for all of you who reached out to me from SEA. The 6 of you represent 20 plus years of students and what he referred to as his greatest life's work. He loved you so much, was so dedicated to you, even when you teased his shoes and mocked his haircut. He came home with stories every day and had his whole family and friends laughing along with you at him. Thank you for letting him into your world and educating him about your lives. Your authenticity was truly the foundation for his passion to educate others to stop talking and listen to today's African American and Latino youth. You have so much to say and so much to teach us. I remember once with tears in his eyes, he said, "They're the strongest and most resilient and talented kids I've ever known, and I'm not even sure they realize how extraordinary they are." He made it his goal to make sure you did. To our immediate family and out-of-town friends who flew in, thank you so much for coming. We needed you, and you came. Thank you for loving Rick so well over the years. David and Carrie, thank you for being by our sides every single second of every day from the moment we hung up with a 911 operator. I will never, ever forget the way that you carried us through this. David, you are his best friend, and you recently told me that you want to support him in any way that you can. And I think he would be really grateful for this. Brent, Rickey loves you most. You are by far the hardest phone call to make because we know how deeply you love your brother. Rickey was fiercely protective of you and so proud of you and the way you've raised your children. Your name came up in our household every single day. And he felt so seen and loved by you. As you begin to rebuild, believe the words he's spoken into your life because they're all true. You really are the best, and you have a heart of gold just like your brother. To my Mosaic family and friends, the word thank you seems so incredibly small. The world fell crashing down last Monday, and you all saved us. Every need, every detail, every concern has been met by this extraordinary community. You've taken fear off the table for us. And the gratitude we have for this community has somehow counteracted so much of the pain. Rick was so proud of the stand that we are taking as a community right now in the Black Lives Matter movement, the heartbeat of this community to create a better future and to be a voice of hope in this world captivated our hearts as a young Texas couple, and now it is the same heartbeat as our son. Rickey loved working with students at Mosaic College. He loved fighting for marriages and building strong father and son relationships and daughter. He fought for all of us. He poured truth into us, made us uncomfortable at times, and pushed back the moment we started doubting our worth. Even though he struggled with his own worth many times, he never stopped fighting for us, always reminded us that we are loved, worthy, and chosen by God. To Jake, when you were born, Dad loved you more than life itself and couldn't fathom giving you a name that didn't have a good history from a father he never knew who didn't have the courage to stay. He made it his mission to change the legacy of that name for you You were what made him most proud in life. He never took the ordinary route with you. He challenged my thinking so much about how to parent. He fought with me to trust you more, to listen to you more when I wanted to overprotect. He poured truth into your life, but never flinched when you asked the hard questions. He never went with a convenient route. He put you in hard positions because he trusted you would come out stronger. He was the most intentional and present dad I've ever witnessed. He taught me the importance of never, ever missing a single game of yours. He baptized you in the Pacific Ocean and handed you your high school diploma from this very school. You and I had the best seats in the house to sit across from the wisest, most thoughtful, most loving, and kind-hearted man every single day. He recently said about you. There's nothing you could ever do to make me love you less. There's nothing you could ever do to make me love you more. To Rickey, I don't even know what to say. I've declared my love for you for decades, but tonight I'm at a loss of words. I know my mind has yet to wrap around even a small percentage of what is happening right now, that your beautiful presence is not here anymore. I fell in love with you at 19 years old and handed you my heart. You have treated it so tenderly and have fiercely protected it for 30 years. Thank you. Last week, you looked at me and you said, these next 50 years will be the best of our life. That sounds impossible now, but then you've always pushed me to look at the impossible, so I promise to try to make them good in your honor. Ecclesiastes 7:1 says, a good name is better than fine perfume, and the day of your death better than the day of your birth. Know this, I've never taken lightly the honor it is to bear your name. Williams is the most honorable name now, and you did that. You changed a legacy, and Jake and I promise to carry that on. To Jesus. I do not understand this, but I do trust you. You are faithful always, and you are so, so good. My heart is broken, but you are close to the brokenhearted, and your presence is surrounding us. Thank you. Thank you for the gift of Rickey Williams.
In the past week, we've been covered with prayer. Reminders and assurance. Prayers of peace and reminders of your full life. And assurance of God's faithfulness. I don't have any words sufficient to express how grateful we are. And as much as I've been in grief, and as much as I've been in disbelief, and as much as I've been angry, I've been tied up with an altogether different concern, one that I haven't been able to express quite yet. And I am overwhelmed with a desire to honor your life with mine. And though I have such determination to do so, I also have so much fear and equally as much doubt. But if I am going to attempt to carry on what you've started, here's what I can promise. I'll suffer well. I'll listen closely. I'll do my good in the darkness, and I'll do my dirt in the light. I'll choose faith so that I'm twice armed. And I will stay in the fight. I will further your legacy. And if I fail, it will be a ground-shaking failure. Because a noble failure is just as honorable as a noble victory. You were born with a name you were not familiar with, but you died with a name we could never forget. You've carved out new meaning in the Williams name. It reads, strength and honor.
This is for you, Uncle Ricky. Well, I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and a moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to her kitchen chair, she broke your throne and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. Maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who outdrew you. And it's not a cry that you here at night. It's not somebody who sees the light. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
We wanted to take a moment to allow a few people to share. If they have something they'd like to say, we want to open up just a space for that, just for a few moments.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm one of Mr. Williams' students from Saya. I was one of the ones that used to make fun of his shoes. To say that Mr. Williams helped me out of a dark place would be an understatement. I went to many schools for being violent and being aggressive. I had officers tell me that the school that I was going to be sent to was going to be my last chance. And that's the school I met Mr. Williams at Saya Crenshaw. And one of the first times I met him, I knew there was something different about him. I really didn't get along with my teachers that much, and of all the schools I went to, but there was just something about Mr. Williams that you just knew that he was full of love, and you knew that he loved you and he would see the best in you, even though you would only see the worst. One thing that we bonded over was the thing about our names. I don't like my family last name because there's a lot of dark history with it. And it was Mr. Williams that showed me that it doesn't matter what name you have, it's what you do with it that matters. Sorry. Mr. Williams also is the one that showed me that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to show compassion and love. Things that I knew almost nothing about before I met him. And now I'm honored to say that many of the people I've met in my life, because of him, have told me that I'm one of the most loving and kindest persons they know. He's also the one that showed me that if there's a big issue in the world, sometimes all it takes is the first step. And if nobody is going to take the first step, be that first step. And that's why I came up here to honor him, to show that somebody got to start it. So it might as well be me. I will miss him dearly. He was more than a teacher. He was like a father to me. He was a very good friend, and I could spend days about stories I have with Mr. Williams, but I know I have to share the time with the rest of you, so it's all I can say is that I will miss him dearly, and thanks to him I have a new chance at life that I never thought I would have. We miss you, Rickey, and we love you, and thank you for being part of us.
Pastor Irwin spoke earlier about how Ricky had a gift for self-deprecation, and I'm going to go for the low-hanging fruit here. I don't know how many of you have heard the story of the triathlon that was mentioned, but for me, that sort of encompasses Ricky. For those of you who haven't heard it, Ricky decided on a whim that he wanted to run a triathlon on Catalina Island. And I believe the first part was the run. And when he got down to the shore, he looked around and he stripped down to his trunks and he couldn't understand why everybody had a wetsuit on. But it became very apparent the moment he stepped into the water. And the shock of the water almost made him stop. But he didn't. And he pushed on. And he finished the race. His beautiful wife was waiting for him at the end. But for me, it's not about the self-deprecating humor. For me, it's about the fact that Ricky didn't care that he didn't have a wetsuit. He wasn't worried about protecting himself. He just jumped right in. And no matter how difficult it was, he kept swimming. And I think that's the message for all of us is don't be afraid. Just jump right in. You're gonna figure it out. You're gonna figure it out. And to me, that was the beauty of Ricky. That was the beauty of Ricky, to push you beyond your own comfort zone and to encourage you. And Jake, I just wanna say to you, I hear what you're saying. The most beautiful man I've ever seen in my life, ever known. Any of us, I think, would agree to that. But I don't think your dad would want you to walk in his shoes, to fill his shoes. I think he would want you to walk in your own, and I think he would encourage you to walk in other people's shoes, because that was the beauty of Ricky. That he would take the time to understand where people were coming from, and you have that. You have that. I remember the first time I saw that speech that you gave, I was blown away. And I thought, he's gonna change the world. And you got it, you've got it. And we're all here to support you. Okay? Don't forget that. Love you, Laura. Thank you.
Uncle Ricky was he wasn't like, Napoleon or somebody who just changed the fate of nations or anything like that. He didn't redraw any maps or anything. But if Napoleon had he had so much money, he had so much power, he had so much he had an entire army working for him. But if there's one thing that Ricky had that Napoleon didn't, it's ideas. I remember I was at Aunt Laura's and Jacob's house yesterday, and I told them that one time we'd come over, and every time we'd come over, I'd hear him say, I don't know how he said my name, but he said Betty's name. He was like, Betty, and just saying that, it made us feel so much more welcome than it would have otherwise. And I'm trying to think of what I was going to say. Sorry. Ideas. Yeah. And and it's those small things, Napoleon never had those ideas, never had those actions, or the way he spoke. I remember Dad was discussing with Uncle Ricky in the car, or I remember the Ahmaud Arbery speech he was making, and I remember just any of those things, just watching him, whether he knows it or not, he's giving you ideas, and those ideas they will persist through time. And I remember I was thinking how like I'll never be able to ever come over there and just see like Uncle Rickey like, you know, hug me and comfort me that way ever again. But like, even though I can't speak to Rickey, he can, you know, his ideas are like cassette tapes. I don't think my generation really knows what cassette tapes are, but okay, they were like recordings, you know. You know, Rickey's passed a barrier that I can never communicate through, but like he somehow can communicate through that barrier. And like those ideas will just, like, they've touched all of us, and he's talked to all of us through that barrier, and we will teach our children and our grandchildren like these ideas, whether we know it or not, because like we've observed him and, you know, sort of took notes. So that's all I have to say.
Pastor Rickey was the best father there ever was. When I moved here as an intern, I didn't have a car, and I like literally could not get around anywhere. And Jake and them went on a trip, and Jake was like, "Can Lydia use my car?" And I used it the like 3 weeks they were gone, and Pastor Rickey like changed the oil for me and everything before he left, like just to make sure I was safe. But like, I always wanted a father that pushed my dreams into me the way he pushed Jake's dreams to like the next level. He pushed you to be the most amazing man, and you will by far live out the Williams name to the most beautiful level there ever was. You have been given such a beautiful glimpse of a man that dreams so big and so wild and influences so many people with his dreams. I feel like you get the access to do that now because of the way he let you dream. And I love that for you. And I love that I got to watch that for you and got to watch Rickey open that door for you to be that. And so I'm very grateful for the time I did get to know him, and I'm thankful that I got to know you through him too. I love you guys.
Laura, Jake, thank you. Thank you for sharing them. Pastor Irwin, Pastor Kim, thank you for bringing them in my life. I met Rickey 7 years ago. And Brent, I know exactly what you're talking about, the politics thing. I have a DM right now that says, "Felix, you're not a Trump guy. I love you either way." And I've never been in a room of so many solid people. And unfortunately, the older you get in these rooms a little bit more. But I think it's a testament to Rickey's life, how solid this room is. But 7 years ago, we met for the first time at this thing called Man Camp that Mosaic put on. And we were roomies. And we had this team. I really gave it all it had. It really gave it all it had, and we really didn't do that well. But Rickey had a pep rally call that was like, you know, the first shall finish last, and the last shall finish first. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I don't know, and I was new to church and just new to a community like this, and honestly, like, I don't know if we won anything. But I do remember that the proudest moment he had was at the end of Man Camp. Our group had the most people that were baptized. And I think, like anything we say here is just gonna speak so much to him, but he has so many facets and so many sides that it's just hard to touch them all. But something else he said to me once was, I don't want to mess it up. I brought this paper. We were supposed to bring a paper, right? There was rules here. The paper says, no one in the world sees the world the way you do, because God has placed a unique gifting in you. And I think this is so solid, and I think it just says something about Rickey, because Rickey's placed something in each one of you. And I think because of that, we all truly see the world different. And I think that's the best thing we can do for Rickey, just keep seeing it different and just keep making a difference.
Okay, I'm Katie. I'm still stuck in the past in Texas. I'm scared to go up the stairs, so I'm talking from here. Most of y'all don't know me, but who you do, I have been best friends with Laura Jean since the 6th grade. Yes, we call her Laura Jean. But I wanted to share a story of how Rickey noticed her, because fortunately I got to be there, and he had escorted me to our sorority banquet. I was already engaged to my husband, and so I asked Rickey if he would escort me because he was such a fun friend, and we did. And Laura was dating somebody else at the time. I won't make this too long, but he noticed her across the table, and that was it. That was it. So, and I have told Jessica that, like, I don't remember a time after that where y'all weren't together. And so it warms my heart so much that all of you love them so much, because I'm far away. And I just know you're going to be okay. And I'm going to say, you're not going to be fine. Like I said on the phone, you're not, but you're going to be okay. I promise, both of you. And Rickey would know, he would just want to know that you're taken care of, and you are. He loved you so, so much. And I'm so thankful that I got to see that firsthand. I love you.
The man camp guy. So is that Highlander originally, Pastor? I think Highlander was, yeah, when I went with Rickey, we actually won Highlander. I think it was the first year. Gary was on that team. Yeah, it was great. I'm Laura's cousin, Rickey's cousin from Texas. I believe that I moved to California, to LA, right around the same time that you guys did. And we kind of kept in touch a little bit, but not really. And in 2002, I got engaged to my wife. She's here tonight, Rochelle. And I remember it was kind of weird, because right around the time I got engaged, all of a sudden my cousin David started calling me and reaching out to me. And at the time I wasn't a believer. And Dave is like, yeah, let's hang out. Let's play basketball. I'm gonna bring my brother-in-law Rickey, and so we would start hanging out. We would go out to lunch, but mainly we would play basketball. That was like our main thing. We would always go play basketball. And I remember the first time playing with David. It was David and Rickey, and they brought a couple other guys from Mosaic. And I remember thinking, well, this should be a fairly easy game of basketball, because back then I believe, well, they're church people, so I should be able to dominate. And I couldn't have been more wrong. As a matter of fact, playing those games, I mean, Rickey was so intense, and I was like, wow, these are Christians, and they're just totally going at it on the knocking each other down, fouling each other hard, and I was like, wow. And but it was interesting because, you know, the time behind the scenes, David and Rickey, who you guys were just like unstoppable force together. The two of you were just, I mean, just the best. And they poured into me. They poured into me. They shared the gospel with me. They went through scripture with me. And I'll never forget Rickey telling me that being a Christian is one thing, but following Jesus is another. And so they did. They poured into me. And then David kind of handed the reins to Rickey. And I started gravitating more and more towards Rickey. And it was kind of a natural fit because Laura, at the same time that Rickey was ministering to me, Laura was ministering to Rochelle. And I remember at the time that we were engaged, we were going through premarital counseling. And they were just sharing what a true marriage was. And Rochelle and I were living together before we got married. And I remember one night, we still hadn't given our life to Jesus, but I got a phone call from Rochelle, and she was bawling. She was crying, like and I'm like, oh my goodness, like what's the matter? And she was like, I'm so happy. And I was like, what's going on? She's like, I gave my life to Christ. And I remember the conviction that she had within her, and she moved out of our apartment, and we continued to go through premarital counseling with Rickey and Laura, and they just poured into us. And then Rickey wound up marrying us. And on the two most important days of my life, Rickey was front and center. He baptized me also in the Pacific Ocean. It was freezing cold. And then he married Rochelle and I. And he led me to my first job at SEA. I was a teacher at SEA with Rickey. Rickey was actually my administrator. And he was always pushing me to invest and pour into the kids there. And I'll never be able to express what this man means to me. I love you, Rickey. You'll be with us forever. We miss you.
I'm Anthony Parker. I met Laura and Rick and Jacob through my son from Pasadena, California, and where Rick was coaching with me out there for the Pasadena Ponies. And I had this, I grew up in gangs. I expressed that to him about me being in gangs and, changing. So Rick was kind of smart, I see. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know all these things about him until today, but he was kind of with he didn't see colors. He just seen men and women. I mean, he seen souls, good people, And what he seen in me, he tried to give me a job at SEA. I remember trying to give me a job at SEA, through my lifestyle. And the kids these was kids that I guess they was kicked out of school. Some of the guys came up, they were kicked out of school. He probably thought, and they couldn't, I guess they wasn't in the regular schools. It's kind of like a continuation school, I guess, you know what I'm saying? But I guess he seen something in me, that I could be able to work with these kids from the way I grew up, through the gangs and all that, and I could relate to those. So Rick seen a lot, he was a visual person to me, that I sit here and I'm listening to all these stories that he's seen something in me. He's seen that, a long time ago that, my life mattered. You know what I mean? So the thing that he's pushing, the Black Lives Matter, he knew a long time ago. That had to be like 2009 or 10 or something like that. So that was 10 years ago that he seen something in me, which is like today is going on right now. I'm like just for all of us to really, more people to be like Rick, because he had a good heart. He didn't see colors. He seen good souls. So I'm happy to been in his life. I'm kind of nervous up here though, you know what I'm saying? But I ain't,
You know, I'm not a public speaker. You know, I'm kind of a little quiet guy, but I had to come show up today because Rick made a, you know, he was a real good. I was Coach Rick. That's what I called him, Coach Rick. And Jacob and Laura, man, our family, we love you. You know, man, my son Juan is here. We had to come out for you guys, and I had to come up here to say something that we're gonna just keep in touch with us. Thank you for letting us be a part of your life.
So we have time for maybe one more or so. Otherwise, Andres is going to kill me. Playing this, please.
Everybody doing? My name is Oraldo Robles. I was one of Williams' graduating classes at Sayre Crenshaw. And man, this is just like it is difficult for you guys, it's difficult for us. Especially coming from where we came from. Williams was a loving man. Like, he was so loving. His heart was full of gold. It was full of beauty. Like, no man like him. And I had shared my feelings on Instagram, and a lot of people could relate to it because Williams was, man, he was one of a kind. He was a real one. Like, when you come from where I come from, you understand the meaning of like being a real one from birth to staying solid throughout anything life throws at you, and just keeping your head up. And like he said, I'm not a public speaker, man. Like, that's why I'm getting the shakes, but I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna do my best because I know Williams, he would want that. You know, he always put that in us to always fight for what you believe in. And man, he was a real one, not only to me, but to everyone he met. Man, no wonder I can't see. My phone was so light. And he would never be forgotten. He would always be remembered. He was a legend, and legends never die. His teachings in every life he impacted, we will carry that on for the rest of our lives. And this man had jokes, like you guys knew him, so he had jokes. Like, this man, every morning, whatever we were going through, like every morning walking into his classroom, jokes, like man. And like I'm for sure he was destined to be a comedian, but he chose to become a teacher and a preacher instead. And if you guys ever seen the movie White Man Can't Jump, man, that'd be Mr. Williams. Man, this man, he was a book you couldn't judge. Like, you would be surprised. And like, to top it all off, he was the coolest white man I ever met. Like, and I love him, and I speak for my people from Sayre and everybody who got a chance to have him in our lives. We're gonna miss him. Like, you guys are gonna miss him, and we're here with you, and we stand strong, and we're gonna continue doing what he wanted us to do. Much love, one love, a love.
Save the best for last. That was really profound. Thank you so much. And just want to echo my sister. We're so honored to have Rickey's students here. It is a privilege for us. Thank you. We want to end with this moment with flowers. This could go really bad, but we're trying something. We just thought, in just the theme of the beauty of what Laura's dream was with flowers and is with flowers, and it would be really appropriate to place flowers in a vase next to Rickey Williams' ashes. We've asked you to think about perhaps a quote. This isn't a time to share a story or talk about what you've learned. It's just a word or a quote or something that maybe he said or he used to say to you that made you live a little bit better. And we want to have a recording so we can give it to Laura and Jake to have as a memorandum for them of the things that Rickey said. And so we have 2 microphones that are set up. And whoever's comfortable, you're going to come up to the mic. You're going to say that quote, and you're going to place the flower in the vase. And we'll kind of end our time with a special piece by Jacob Williams. Okay, but we'll start with that. whenever you're ready, whoever would like to.
What we're really committed to creating in this world is what we do with our lives.
Carrie, don't worry about it. You got this.
In a time of self-doubt, Ricky looked at me and said, "You are who God says you are."
The goal is to shift to your best self. This is when you can make a difference and live the life you're supposed to live. It's your personal anthem.
He would always ask, especially in January, after a child was born, River, he was like, "When are the 3 boys going to come and stay with us? We need to have them." And I know he loved our boys like they were his own.
Stay golden, pony boy.
When it comes to the movement of Jesus, you don't have permission to be afraid.
Empathy is a superpower.
Ricky said, "Remember that every person we meet is being pursued by God, and that spiritual movement is not something we start or stop, it's something we join."
Pastor Ricky never asked me how I was doing. He always asked, "What are you doing that's new?" And in a message he preached called Stay New, he said, "You have to be willing to change everything or you'll miss the new."
You would say he's amazing. He's so talented, and I'm so proud. Jake, that was about you. And I know that you have a lot of life you're gonna live. But he's proud of you right now for all the life you have lived in this moment.
He told me humility is the freedom to go anywhere and do anything for someone else.
In one of his teachings, Ricky said to always finish strong, and that's what he did.
He taught me when addressing your loved ones, don't always stand in front of them, but stand on the side of them, because it shows that you're listening.
Ricky would say to me, "Greg, how are you showing up today?"
Mr. Williams told me that your name and your history is something you're born with. But what happens to that name is up to you.
He took me through God-crafted identity quite some time ago, and I'll just never forget whenever he said, write down 3 things that you would say about yourself. Now write down 3 things God says about you.
It's not about the treasures and the things we leave with people. It's what we leave in people.
In December, Ricky and I had a conversation at Disneyland, and it was about your dad, Dave, and your David and Laura, and we just chatted he kept encouraging me, go big, Cheryl, go big. Just keep going and don't give up.
I had the pleasure of walking through life with Ricky for the last several months, and the one thing he showed me was what a grateful heart he had. He was grateful for everything, for every person in his life. If ever a man embodied Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, Ricky Williams did.
I remember Ricky mentioning this verse as his calling, and I was very impressed because he's such a humble man, but it showed that he was confident and brave when it came to his calling. It's from Isaiah 61, 1-3. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom from the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord, for the display of his splendor. I believe he fulfilled his calling well.
When you're not sure what path you should be on, or if you're on the right path, Ricky would say, go until you get a no.
And Ricky believed in the unit of family, the family unit, and he even looked at my 3-year-old and 7-year-old with so much hope, and always encouraged us to ask them and set their days up with asking them, what are you committed to creating today? And I know that through Ricky and through Jacob and Laura, every day Parker's always committed to kindness, and that's because of Ricky.
Pastor Ricky told me there is no greater fight than the fight for your family. So we gotta make the hard but necessary choices each day so that our love for them is undeniable.
Ricky told me to be joyful and to love others well.
It was 6 a.m. I asked Pastor Ricky, kind of nervous to lead this men's Bible study. You down to do it? And I'll do next Thursday. He said, that's your self-crafted identity. Always remember to live in your God-crafted identity.
Pastor Ricky was my teacher at Mosaic College, but was a big brother to me. And he always said, the greatest leader of all is the greatest servant of all.
He told us marriage
as two inherently selfish people joined to live an unselfish life together.
Because of Ricky, I know that my vision for the world is compassion, hope, and community.
Own everything. Actually, I got that from his Instagram account. But many of you may not realize that we worked together at my school for a time in 2018, and he shared that with our students, and he also shared with them and with me, show up as the best version of yourself.
In the conversations he had with my husband and I, he would say, man, whatever you're doing, find the joy in it. Do it with joy.
Ricky once told me, you have complete design control over your internal space. What are you designing? Your power comes from your private life.
You can create what you contain.
Everything the normal way. He sent us a video asking for our blessings to marry Laura. And we were so excited, but we weren't ever really knowing that well, but a group had come from Powered Pain at one time, and he was in that group. We didn't realize that he kept looking at Laura and that there was a reason. So he did send a video asking for Laura's hand in marriage and for us to give our blessings, and we are the ones that got the blessing. We know that she was well taken care of and well loved.
He told me after Mosaic College class one day to always speak with compassion, empathy, because love is needed in all spaces.
We had the privilege of going through premarital counseling with Pastor Rickey, and he told me to let her into my inner world.
He said to begin every conversation by praying, God, what do you want me to know about this person?
So our great-grandmother taught him, and then he taught me as a child, to the saying, whenever you got scared, you could say, at when in times I am afraid, I will trust in the Lord.
I got to observe Ricky teaching at Say's school to 8, 9, 10-year-olds. And he looked at these kids full of hope and awe. And he asked them, what kind of world do you want to create?
Bigger than words are beliefs. And Ricky believed so much that overspilled into love of everyone around him. And I am so eternally grateful. I'm here today, and John and I are here today, still together in part because of you and Ricky, and I am more than grateful. Thank you.
There is literally nothing to be afraid of. You got this.
You are beautiful inside and out. always tell me to never give up on my hopes and dreams.
You have the capacity for greatness.
Live with an open heart in the midst of your greatest pain.